Hello everybody. This is a video that I just created because there was an issue that was brought up to my attention with the Unit 8 validation project. And the issue was that if you follow up the instructions that are in the video lecture, they were created with targeting ASP 4.5, or rather ASP 4.0 platform. And then with the validation in ASP 4.5, you would have to, if you just follow the instructions as is, the validation system requires an additional step that there are two ways actually to deal with issue. I'll show you what happens and what causes the problem, and then I'll show you how to fix this problem. So the idea was in the video lecture, we created a website that takes a input text field and a button, and then we want to associate a validation control, server control, to the text box, so that when a user wants to submit this form, they would have to have basically material in the text box, kind of like when you're entering a username and password, and if you don't fill those required boxes, then you would see an error. And so the idea was to create this with the server control validation server controls. And the problem is, if you are using 4.5 .NET Framework, then when you click on the submit button, when the validation kicks in, then it will actually ask you to assign a script resource mapping that basically uses a jQuery script to utilize your validation. And it's basically an exception that the system throws upon igniting the validation. Now, there are two ways, as I mentioned, around this issue and solve this issue. Probably the simplest way to solve this issue is just to use the .NET 4.0 framework. And alternatively, you can go to your web config if you decided, if you still wanted to use 4.5, and just assign an unobtrusive mode for your validation controls, so that you wouldn't require any additional scripting or script mapping to be associated. So I'll show you how you can do this. So first, let's actually stop this project, and then we will just rerun and connect to the server. So this is, again, how the code looks like. And now what we're going to do is actually, again, we're going to stop the project, and we are going to, now for the first round, let's actually go ahead and revert back to our 4.0 framework, which is actually fairly straightforward. It's really easy to do. All you need to do, this is so my project, and so you have your website called validation, and then you have your default ASPX, and then your web config ASPX. In order to change your framework, the simplest way to do it is to right click on the name of your project, click on the properties page, and then go to the build section and expand the target framework, and then choose target framework 4. Apply, yes, okay. Now if you open up your web config file, now you will see now the target framework is set at 4.0. So it's actually fairly straightforward from that point. If you run the page again, now you would have your validation, and then if you press submit button, then you would see the validation goes through. So that's the first way, and it's probably the simplest way. If you don't want to use any kind of 4.5 specific items for your target framework, you can just use 4.0, and that will solve your problem at that point. Alright, now let's say that you did not want to use the 4.0 target framework, and you needed some 4.5 specific functionalities. You can still use an obtrusive mode so that you would avoid that problem. So to do that, let's actually go back to 4.5. So we again go to properties and change back to 4.5.1 in our build setting. Say yes. Alright, now that we have changed our target framework, we're going to open up our web config and then get rid of the downward compatibility. So basically what happened is that since we went from a 4.0 framework and upgraded to 4.5 framework, now our system.web actually does include the compatibility, downward compatibility for our rendering controls with version 4.0. So what we will do, however, notice that a 4.5 target has been created for us, and it's basically commented out. So what I'm going to have to do actually, I'm going to go in and just effectively copy this HTTP runtime target framework from 4.5.1 and just replace my now downward compatible target framework, and then get rid of my 4.0 target compatibility settings there, and save my web.config. So then again, what I did is basically when I'm in compilation, I'm targeting 4.5.1. I go to HTTP runtime and set the target framework there at 4.5.1, which is my target, and then take out the pages bound backward compatibility with the 4.0 version. So now, I believe if I test this project now, I would get that same problem of my jQuery script resource mapping that was originally the cause. So how can I go about and fix this problem with the second way of fixing this problem? It's actually pretty easy to do. There's only one item that I need to add to my web.config now that I'm targeting the framework of 4.5 and the HTTP runtime of 4.5. I'll go ahead. I need to add an app setting to my web.config and then add a key for unobtrusive mode for my validation settings. Let's do that. So we go back again to the web config, and so web config is basically as you see it. You've got your system.web that has your compilation framework and then your runtime framework. So what I need to do is to add an app setting, and it doesn't matter where, below or above the system.web tag. We basically add the app settings tag, and then inside of that app settings tag, we're going to add a key, and that key would be our validation settings. So notice that it has to be within the opening and the closing tag of your configuration. So we're going to do app settings, and then within the app settings, we will add a key, and this will be validation settings on unobtrusive validation mode. And then we can assign to it a value of none, or you can just leave the value out. I believe that you should be okay if you just leave the value out. So then again, what we did basically is we added an app settings tag to our web.config, and then within the tag we added a key, and that key is validation settings unobtrusive validation mode. If I have spelled everything correctly, my project should work. So let's rerun this. Now this is my window. And if I submit, now my validation mode is set to be unobtrusive. Therefore, it would not effectively render or throw the exception that we saw earlier with the jQuery and obtrusive mode. So this is basically it. Just two simple ways of going about and addressing that problem. Two ways to do it: either revert back your target to 4.0, and you'll be good. If you wanted to stay with the 4.5.1 or 4.5, you just need to add an app settings and add a key for validation settings to be on obtrusive mode, and then this should work. Well, I hope you enjoyed the rest of the projects, and good luck.